Okay, let me set some context first, just so everybody understands something. The DNC formally endorsed Joe Biden by voice vote unanimously at their last meeting. There are not going to be any debates. This is exactly what we saw, by the way, in 2012. This is what we saw in 1996. When an incumbent president runs for re-election, the Democratic Party supports that candidate, the incumbent, and there are not debates. It's also the same thing that the RNC did in 2020 with Trump. There were no debates either on the Republican side. That's just how this thing works, and I don't think that's going to be a big topic of conversation. I mean, Joe Rogan can go out there and say these things, but so strong, he couldn't even remember Marianne Williamson's name. I mean, like, I don't know about saying strong candidates here that we need to be worrying about.
Fair enough, but we put that back up. RFK Jr. is polling at 19%. You don't have to, in this case, win the primary to really damage Joe Biden going into the general election. And if he's not out there, he's not campaigning, he's seen as our polling showed up, 70% of people don't want him to run because of age. If he's seen as being hidden, that plays with swing voters, does it not, Scott?
It does. And two things. Historically speaking, in an open primary, Republican or Democrat, if you're polling above 15%, they usually let you in the debate. That being said, everything Kurt said is right. I mean, historically speaking, and there's precedent, into the 20th century about them supporting incumbent presidencies, doesn't mean people can't talk about it. That's why the democracies and campaigns are fun. People can complain about it. And to be honest, I'd be surprised if more than 10% of America knew the stats that Kurt just threw out. They don't care.
I also want to point out, too, when it comes to Kennedy, I look at what's interesting going on here. The people that are elevating Kennedy right now, it's Roger Stone, it's Steve Bannon, it's Matt Schlapp. This isn't the Democratic Party elevating him. I think that a lot of the pool of people that are supporting him, that are interested in him, are also people that overlap with that worldview where they see conspiracy in everything.
Right, it's sort of the bottom of the horseshoe.
Like that Venn diagram overlaps there.
Okay, but again, I go back to this. What is the strategy behind no interviews, no press conferences, run as safe and as sort of behind-the-scenes campaign as you possibly can? Mm-hmm. Is there a fear that that's Hillary's playbook and it's not going to work?
I don't think there is, because I think the strategy is competency over chaos, ultimately. This is a president who, unlike his predecessor...
Hold on. I mean, forgive me for interrupting you. You say competency over chaos. Saying that I'm going to have a major press conference today and then having to have your staff walk it back and say, no, you meant an interview, that doesn't really speak to competency.
Well, I'm talking about the big picture. I mean, he misspoke, which he clearly went out there, said, staff clean it up. That happens. Everyone misspeaks from time to time. That's not a big deal. But I think what we're talking about here is, unlike his predecessor, who spent his entire presidency golfing and watching cable TV and tweeting about it, this is a president who has delivered on creating jobs, on having record unemployment growth, on recovering from COVID, on bringing our economy back, passing ambitious legislation. He got more done in his first term in office than most presidents do when they get 2 terms in office. I think he's let his record and doing the job speak for himself, rather than going on vanity media tours, which really, again, that's what we saw from the last guy. And American people didn't really like that when it came to give him an opportunity to get reelected.
He got